administration, you would think that the U.S. courts have found that Mr. Abrego Garcia is part of MS-13, but in fact, they have not found that. In fact, recently a U.S. federal court judge said that the Trump administration did not have evidence to support the claim that he had ever been part of MS-13. In fact, Mr. Abrego Garcia is legally in the United States. In fact, an immigration judge found years ago that it would put his life in danger if he was returned to El Salvador. And so he was given protective status and a work permit. And by the way, that was done during the last Trump administration, the last time President Trump was in office, and they never appealed that decision. So I want to emphasize that President Trump and our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Vice President of the United States are lying when they say that Abrego Garcia has been charged with a crime or is part of MS-13. That is a lie. And this is a lie to cover up what they did. So what did they do? So they illegally abducted Mr. Abrego Garcia from Maryland and sent him to CICA, which is a notorious prison here in El Salvador. In fact, it's a prison where they say they send the worst of the worst, right? That's where they send the terrorists. Now, the courts of the United States have said there's no evidence to support the charge that he's part of MS-13. So I asked the Vice President whether or not El Salvador has any evidence that he's part of MS-13 or has committed a crime. So I asked the Vice President if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CICA? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CICA. And I pointed out that neither the government of El Salvador nor the Trump administration has presented evidence to support the claim that he's committed any kind of criminal acts.
Entonces yo le dije que ni el gobierno de los Estados Unidos ni El Salvador ha presentado ninguna prueba de que el señor Abrego García ha cometido algún hecho ilegal.
And so why not release Abrego Garcia today?
Y entonces, ¿por qué no liberar al señor Abrego García hoy mismo?
And he said what President Bukele said the other day
Lo mismo que dijo el presidente Bukele y Breezy
at the White House,
en la Casa Blanca,
which that El Salvador can't smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States.
que El Salvador no puede contrabandear al señor Abrego García de nuevo hacia los Estados Unidos.
And I said, I'm not asking him to smuggle Mr. Abrego Garcia into the United States. I'm simply asking him to open the door of CICOT and let this innocent man walk out.
Y yo le dije que yo no le estoy pidiendo que él entre ilegalmente al señor Abrego García a los Estados Unidos, sino que sencillamente que abra la puerta del sector para que él pueda salir.
And I pointed out that the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, has said that the United States would send a plane to El Salvador to pick him up.
Yo le dije que incluso el señor Bondi, que es el fiscal general de los Estados Unidos, dijo que enviaría una
And why did she do that? Because the Supreme Court of the United States, in a ruling of 9-0, has said that the Trump administration has to facilitate his return to the United States.
Y eso lo dijo porque en la Corte Suprema de los Estados Unidos dijo que se le tiene que facilitar el regreso al señor Abrego García a los Estados Unidos.
Now, there's no evidence that the Trump administration is complying with that order.
Pero no hay evidencia que la administración de Estados Unidos
There's no evidence that they're complying with that order. In fact, the United States Embassy here has told me they've received no direction from the Trump administration to help facilitate his release. So the Trump administration is clearly in violation of American court orders.
Así que claramente la administración de los Estados Unidos está en franco incumplimiento con las órdenes de los Estados Unidos.
But that still leaves the question, why is the government of El Salvador continuing to imprison a man where they have no evidence he's committed any crime and they've not been provided any evidence from the United States that he's committed a crime?
Y entonces la pregunta que resta por preguntar es por qué entonces el gobierno de El Salvador no le hay pruebas que lo incriminen.
So they should just let him go.
Entonces deberían liberarlo, dejarlo ir.
And they should let him go, and we will find a way to get him from San Salvador to Maryland, the state of Maryland.
Deben de dejarlo ir y nosotros encontraremos una manera de
Because I promised his wife Jennifer,
porque
and
yo le prometí a su esposa Jennifer,
and his mother and his brother
a su madre y a su hermano,
and their family,
y a
because
toda la familia,
he has 3 children.
porque él tiene 3 hijos.
Some of them have severe disabilities.
Algunos de ellos con problemas.
I promised them that I would do everything I could to get him out of CICOT.
Y yo les prometí a ellos que iba a hacer todo lo que estuviera en mis manos para sacarlos del sector.
And I won't stop trying, and I can assure the president, the vice president, that I may be the first United States senator to visit El Salvador on this issue, but there will be more, and there will be more members of Congress coming.
Yo les he dicho a El Salvador que tal vez soy el primer senador que ha venido para tratar este asunto, pero puedo asegurarles que no van a venir muchos.
This is an unsustainable and unjust moment, so it cannot continue this way.
Este es un momento que no es sostenible, no puede continuar de esta manera.
I also told his wife and family that I would try to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia while I was here.
También les prometí a su esposa y a su madre que iba a tratar de reunirse con el señor Abrego García mientras él estuviera aquí en el país.
So I asked the vice president if I could meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia.
Así que le pregunté al vicepresidente si yo podía reunirme con el señor Abrego García.
And he said, well, you need to make earlier provisions to go visit CCOT.
Y él me dijo que había que hacer ciertos arreglos previos para poder entrar.
I said, I'm not interested at this moment in taking a tour of CCOT. I just want to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia.
Y yo le contesté que yo no estaba interesado en tomar un tour, dar una vuelta, sino que yo quería era tener una reunión con el señor Abrego García.
He said he was not able to make that happen.
Y él me dijo que no estaba dentro de sus posibilidades hacer que eso sucediera.
I asked, he said he needed a little more time.
Me dijo que necesitaba más tiempo.
I asked him if I came back next week, whether I'd be able to see Mr. Abrego Garcia.
Yo le pregunté que si regreso la próxima semana, si entonces sí voy a poder hablar con el señor Abrego García.
He said he couldn't promise that either.
Y me dijo que eso tampoco lo podía prometer.
So I asked him if I could get on the phone, either video phone or just a phone, and talk to Mr. Abrego Garcia.
Entonces yo le pregunté que si podía hacerle una llamada telefónica, ya fuera una videollamada o por teléfono con el señor Abrego García.
So I could just ask him how he's doing so I could report back to his family.
Solamente para saber cómo está y poder reportar nuevamente su estado a su familia.
He said he could not arrange that.
Y me dijo que no podía hacer arreglos para eso.
He said maybe if the American embassy were to ask, maybe that could happen.
Me dijo que si tal vez la embajada americana lo pidiera, tal vez entonces podría suceder.
So I will certainly ask the American embassy to ask the government of El Salvador to connect us by phone.
Así que eso también yo voy a hacer con la embajada de los Estados Unidos para ver si puedo hablar con él por teléfono.
I asked him how about his family? How can he talk to his wife so that she can hear his voice?
Y también hice la pregunta de que qué puede hacer la familia, su esposa, para poder hablar y que ella escuche su voz.
I let him know that the family has requested that.
Y le dije que la familia ha solicitado eso.
He said he was not sure whether he could make that happen.
Y me dijo que no estaba seguro de poder hacer eso.
So we have an unjust situation here. The Trump administration is lying about Abrego Garcia. The American courts have looked at the facts. In fact, the Trump administration lawyer, the government lawyer, admitted to the court that Mr. Abrego Garcia had been mistakenly taken in administrative error, that it was a mistake. But instead of fixing the problem and addressing that injustice, do you know what the Trump administration did?
Pero en lugar de corregir, ¿saben ustedes lo que hizo la administración?
They put that lawyer, who's a 15-year veteran of the Department of Justice, on administrative leave.
Ellos prácticamente sacaron a ese abogado que ha tenido
and berated that lawyer who told the truth to the judge. So I want to just close by reading you what the judge said. This is a federal district court judge in the District of Maryland. And I'm quoting from Judge Zinnes here. As defendants acknowledge, and the defendants here are the government, or the Trump administration. They had no legal authority to arrest him,
no tenían autoridad legal para arrestarlo,
no justification to detain him,
ninguna justificación para detenerlo,
and no grounds to send him to El Salvador,
ni ninguna base para enviarlo a El Salvador,
let alone deliver him into one of the most dangerous prisons in the Western Hemisphere.
y mucho menos para meterlo en una de las cárceles más terribles de todo el hemisferio.
The judge went on to say, and I quote,
El juez siguió diciendo, y estoy citando,
having confessed grievous error,
habiendo confesado que se hizo un error,
the defendants,
los acusados,
and again, that's the government, that's the Trump administration,
nuevamente los
having
acusados
confessed
del gobierno,
grievous error, they now argue that this court lacks the power to hear the case.
ahora dicen que esta corte no tiene el poder para poder oír el caso.
And that they lack the power, the court lacks the power to order Abrego Garcia's return.
Y que la corte tampoco tiene el poder para ordenar el regreso de Abrego García.
So a U.S. District Court judge has ordered the Trump administration to bring him home.
Así que este juez de la Unión ha ordenado que traigan a casa a Abrego García.
The United States Supreme Court, by 9-0 vote, has ordered the administration to facilitate his return.
Y la corte en una votación de 9-0 ordenó que trajeran nuevamente a Abrego García.
So the Trump administration needs to obey the law.
Entonces la administración Trump tiene que obedecer la ley.
But I'm also asking the government of El Salvador and the president and vice president of El Salvador
También estoy solicitando al gobierno de El Salvador, a su presidente y a su vicepresidente,
not to keep a man who was illegally abducted from the United States
no detener a un hombre que fue ilegalmente traído de los Estados Unidos
and charged with no crime
y acusado de ningún crimen
to remain in CCOT,
para que siga permaneciendo en su casa.
when as a sovereign country, they have the power to let him go and let him go now.
Porque como país soberano que somos, deberían de dejarlo ir y dejarlo ir ahora.
And I hope they will.
Y espero que así lo hagan.
Thank
Are
you.
you concerned whether Mr. Abrego Garcia is still alive?
I don't know about his health status. That's exactly why I wanted to meet with him directly. That's why I wanted to talk to him on the phone. That's why I want to arrange a phone call with his wife. I mean, this is a notorious prison. And the family, this is a guy, again, he just got disappeared off the streets of Maryland. He ends up in, I'm sorry.
Es por eso que yo estoy pidiendo que necesito verlo, necesito hablar con él, porque no sabemos cuál es la situación de Abrego García. Simplemente desapareció de la clínica.
This is why I wanted to see him. I also want to say to everybody here, you may know, in the state of Maryland, we have a very wonderful, robust Salvadorian population. And they contribute greatly to our state.
Senador, es una afrenta del gobierno de Bukele al sistema de justicia de Estados Unidos.
No le oigo cuando yo estoy hablando, no puedo oír. ¿Su pregunta cuál es?
Es que sí es una afrenta del gobierno de Bukele al sistema
Is
de
it
justicia
a
de Estados Unidos.
confrontation from the Bukele administration to the United States of America?
Well, I'm asking President Bukele to, okay, I'm asking President Bukele, under his authority as president of El Salvador, to do the right thing and allow Mr. Abrego Garcia to walk out of a prison, a man who's charged with no crime, convicted of no crime, and who was illegally abducted from the United States.
Es por eso que yo le estoy haciendo la petición al presidente Bukele para que suelte al señor Abrego García, que no fue acusado de ningún crimen, para que pueda salir.
Do you maintain any hope that you'll be able to meet with Kilmer?
I'm going to keep pressing. You want to?
Tiene esperanza de entender al señor Abrego García.
I will keep pressing in my remaining time here, and I will keep pressing beyond that if necessary.
Última pregunta, por favor, última pregunta.
Gestiones después de la reunión que tuvo con el vicepresidente Ulloa va a generar otras gestiones o qué otra estrategia puede desde el Congreso puede generar usted para reunirse y para garantizar las condiciones del señor Kilmar Garcia.
What are the time, do you think that you can undertake, or what other activity are you going to undertake to make sure that we can have the release of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
Well, I will say that as a member of Congress, we'd like to work to have good relations between, the people of the United States and the people of El Salvador. And
Congresista de los Estados Unidos quisiera decirles que nosotros siempre abogamos por tener unas buenas relaciones
Just on the
entre
live stream, the question was, what more can Congress do?
and that's why we need to make sure that we keep working to secure justice, because Congress has a very important role to play in the relationship between the United States and the people of El Salvador.
Por eso siempre tenemos que trabajar muy duro para que se haga justicia. El Congreso tiene mucho que ver con las relaciones entre los Estados Unidos y El Salvador.
And so, for example, the Trump administration is reportedly going to pay the government of El Salvador up to $15 million to house people sent from the United States.
15.
15 million. 15 million.
Se ha sabido que el gobierno de El Salvador va a recibir hasta 15 millones de dólares por darle albergue a.
And, I don't think there are going to be a lot of members of Congress that will clearly be unwilling to spend money to keep people like Kilmar Garcia in CCOT, because again, he was illegally abducted from the United States and charged with no crime. So why should the taxpayers of the United States pay the government of El Salvador to lock up a man who was illegally abducted from the United States and committed no crime? Thank you all very much. Gracias.
Muchas
And have
gracias.
a-
Con eso finalizamos.
Muchas gracias.